Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Murder, where I'll be talking about and reviewing an episode of Poirot, Murder, She Wrote, Diagnosis Murder, or Jonathan Creek. Today I'm looking at Poirot, Death on the Nile, or as I like to call it, that time Poirot gave me chills. We begin the episode with some stormy clouds, an ominous variation of the theme tune, and an aggressive looking title, before we zoom in through a skylight to, oh my, excuse me. Holy shit, how many candles do you need? But anyway, Simon stops mid-sexy times because he's worried about something, and Jacqueline comforts him, not worry that they're poor, so they can get back to it. Emily Blunt and her American accent talks about Jacqueline and her troubles, while her friend Joanna wants her to marry some rich dude. And just gonna snort some cocaine? Okay then. This maid clomps in, announcing Jacqueline is coming to dinner, and for a hot second I thought it was Famke Janssen, and the girls giggle about her relationship troubles. Jacqueline tells Linnet that she's engaged to Simon, but he's just lost his job and wants Linnet to hire him, and says they're going to Egypt for their honeymoon, and uh-oh, these two are smiling at each other. That can't be good. And he kind of reminds me of Tom Hiddleston.
Well now, isn't this simply lovely?
3 months later in Egypt, Poirot was spotted by Tim Allerton and his mother, and this old bat Marie is a total dick to her cousin Cornelia, before Poirot is approached by some woman asking him to dance, who you may recognise from Harry Potter. Poirot is too polite to say no and has to put up with her rambling about her book, and in walks Linnet and Simon, who are now married. That was fast. The characters continue to pile in, with these two smokers gossiping about Linnet, and this trustee dude Andrew who just happens to be here. Rosalie rescues Poirot by dragging her mother away, and enter Jacqueline, who is drunk off her tits and makes trouble for the newlyweds.
I'd hang on tight, ducky. He's a slippery fish.
Linnet goes to Poirot for help, seeing as Jacqueline keeps hounding her, but he points out that she's not broken any law, and Linnet is the Jolene to Jacqueline's Dolly Parton in this situation, so turns down the case. He goes to speak to Jacqueline and says she needs to let things go, but she is insistent that her and Simon belong together, and then drops a gun, which isn't concerning at all. She was planning on shooting them, but decided instead to follow them wherever they went. Isn't she poor? And while Poirot tells her to chill the fuck out, Jacqueline thinks someone is listening and walks off. Simon, cosplaying as Poirot, meets him to ask if he can help and admits he's booked them on the Nile cruise to get away from Jacqueline, and Poirot says he'll be on the same cruise. The characters all pile onto the cruise and it sets sail, but surprise bitches, Jacqueline is here too, and Linnet blames Poirot. It's dinner time and Poirot sits with the Allertons, pointing out Dr. Bessner, who resembles the walrus from Alice in Wonderland, and Mr. Ferguson, who is the gossipy smoker from earlier. Linnet and Simon come in, staring daggers at Jacqueline, who Poirot goes to say goodnight to, and warns her to stop being such a love-crazed nutjob. The next day, they're all off on an excursion, watch out for Arnold Vosloo, and Cornelia, it seems, has some space, with Marie opting to stay on the boat, but everyone else seems to have come, including the lovebirds, and of course, Jacqueline. Poirot spies on the scene, and now we're back on the boat, where Linnet is signing stuff with Andrew, and Cornelia gets yelled at.
Really are a hopeless creature.
I can be rather stupid, can't I?
Aww. Mr. Ferguson judges everyone. I mean, he's not wrong, but he pisses off Poirot, who then gets run into by Salome, who is having a bit of a freak out.
God, I hope we don't go down, Monsieur Poirot. The thought of being nibbled by haddock and carp.
Poirot shoves her back in her room. Time for another excursion, and are there seriously no other people on board other than this lot? Poirot calls Andrew out for having Linnet's documents at the ready despite apparently running into her by chance, and he tells Poirot to mind his own business. They visit a temple where Dr. Bessner tells Poirot he digs Cornelia's boobs, and when Linnet and Simon sit down, one of the local kids warns them in time to avoid disaster. Bouncy disaster. But turns out it can't have been Jacqueline. Through his spying stick, Poirot spots some guys on camels, one of whom he recognises as an old friend, and look how happy he is. Colonel Race is heading back on the boat with him, where Cornelia is once again berated by Marie, who claims her stole has been, well, stolen. Tim is ninjaing about. Poirot decides to go to bed and runs into Jacqueline on her way in to make a nuisance. Ding dong, and sings before Linnet wants to go to bed. Wait, You call this a large gin? Cornelia wants to leave, but Jacqueline makes her stay by getting her to tell her life story. But everything is super awkward as the ex-lovers get into a row and Jacqueline shoots Simon. Ferguson comes to help, Jacqueline kicks the gun away, Simon asks him to cover up the shooting, and Jacqueline is ushered away. Cornelia stays with a hysterical Jacqueline, while Ferguson goes to get Dr. Bessner, who says Simon's leg is fractured, and they take him back to his cabin. After he's all patched up nicely, he remembers the gun, which Ferguson goes to retrieve, but nope, it's gone, and the next morning Poirot brushes his eyeballs before Colonel Race comes in to tell him about the shooting of Linnet Doyle. Dr. Bessner says she was shot in her sleep, so clearly she didn't write this bloody J for Jacqueline. But Poirot seems to suspect her anyway, and Dr. Bessner fills them in on the other shooting that happened last night.
Is there anyone else we should know about?
That is all.
Cornelia and Ferguson tell Poirot all about what went on last night, which gives Jacqueline an airtight alibi, and Poirot is concerned when he hears the gun is missing. Or maybe turned on?
Now we begin to arrive.
There was only a 5-minute window where the gun could have been taken, so someone else must have witnessed the whole thing, and Ferguson says he heard what sounded like a splash before he went to bed.
Oh, by the way, who exactly are you?
Jacqueline is next up for questioning, and she swears she didn't kill Linnet, which Poirot believes despite her being a bit of a loon.
I can't think of anyone who wanted her dead except for me.
And she reminds Poirot that someone was eavesdropping on the night they first met. The doc says Doyle can talk now.
Is he all right?
Well, of course he is not all right. You shot him.
Brutal. So Poirot goes to ask him about potential enemies. Simon says there was someone on board who had a beef with Linnet's old man, and the maid freaks out, kind of implying she might have seen who did the murder, and worries that she's going to get into trouble, especially seeing as she didn't notice that Linnet's valuable necklace was missing. Mrs. Allerton says she heard a splash and someone running, and Tim says the same but the other way around, with Marie being the most helpful, giving an exact time to when the splash happened, and says Rosalie dropped something overboard. Jacqueline's gun is recovered from the Nile, somehow, with a pink splattered rag wrapped in the missing stole, which was used as a silencer. I love how few fucks to give this guy has.
Count von Mecklenburg will be most displeased.
Poirot says it doesn't make sense that whoever tried to frame Jacqueline got rid of the gun, and Rosalie denies ever leaving her cabin and didn't throw anything overboard. Salome is rattling on, yep, these are the correct expressions, and Andrew is colossally unhelpful. And Poirot wonders why the stole was taken ahead of time, before he runs into the doc who says Simon wants to see Jacqueline. Poirot has to witness some terrible overacting and leaves, only to come across an argument between the Otterborns, and he concludes that Rosalie threw Salome's alcohol supply overboard to stop her from drinking. And I love this woman's aesthetic, but not her hideous eyeshadow. Jacqueline stumbles into dinner.
Poor child. She looks dreadfully unhappy.
No, she shouldn't go around shooting people.
He's not wrong, and it's announced that the boat and everyone on it are about to be searched to find the stolen pearls. Cornelia goes to Poirot to reveal she has the necklace, and Marie is a bit of a klepto, so she's on this trip to keep an eye on her. Poirot has a taste. Did they not feed you on this boat? And declares them to be fake. So the search must continue, where Poirot finds an empty bottle of nail polish. We get a montage of searching, which kind of blends into itself, so it's kind of hard to work out what got found where, but apparently Rosalie was packing heat, and they haven't been able to search Louise, as she's missing. They go to her cabin to find blood, and her body unsuccessfully finding Narnia, and turns out she was stabbed an hour ago, clutching some money because she hinted earlier that she may have seen who killed Linnet. Poirot goes to yell at Rosalie for lying, but there's no pistol in her bag anymore, and accuses her of also witnessing the murder, but she and her eyes say no. Poirot goes to question Simon, but Salome rushes in, saying she knows the identity of the killer, and Simon loudly asks her questions, and before she can reveal the killer, she's shot dead. Because Andrew's gun was used, Poirot interrogates him, and honestly, I'm a little lost. But turns out he tried to kill Linnet with the statue at the temple. He claims that was an accident and didn't murder anyone, and Ferguson blabs that Cornelia was the one who had a beef with Linnet's dad.
Will you marry me?
What?
It goes against all my principles, I know, but I really think you should, so how about it?
Wait, what? He rushes off to tell Marie his plans, but she's repulsed by the notion.
I'm not that bad, you know. Anatomically, everything is in the right place, in perfect working order.
No, seriously, what's going on? Poirot tells Marie that Ferguson is actually a lord, so she chases after him, and he makes Tim, who's acting skittish, sit down and listen to him. There's been a string of jewellery thefts committed by Joanna from the beginning, who swapped the real jewels with the fake ones to cover her tracks, but she's not on the cruise, so it was Tim who made the switch, getting spotted by Rosalie, who kept quiet for fear he was the killer.
Was Madame Doyle alive or dead when you stole the pearls?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Poirot strongly suggests he put the pearls back to avoid a murder charge, and he chucks the fakes in the river. Seriously, stop chucking shit in the Nile. Rosalie kisses him, but...
Barking up the wrong tree, I'm afraid.
and he makes a quick exit. Poirot is ready to spill the tea, and apparently his wine was drugged. Okay then. And the stole hadn't been used when killing Linnet. Right. And the nail polish contained red ink, not polish. And Louise's cryptic statement was aimed at the killer.
Simon Doyle.
Turns out Jacqueline shot a blank, allowing Simon to grab the revolver, run to shoot Linnet, grab the ink, try and frame Jacqueline, and run back again before shooting himself a reel in the leg and tossing all the evidence into the river. Because Louise saw him do it, Simon sent Jacqueline to murder her, but then Salome saw her do that, which is why Simon was so loud when she was saying she knew who did it, to warn Jacqueline, who grabbed Andrew's gun and silenced her. Simon married Linnet for her fortune, which he would inherit and give to his real true love, Jacqueline.
It seems as if you had thought of everything, Monsieur Doyle, except for one thing. Hercule Poirot.
Simon breaks down and Poirot tells him not to worry because the gallows work very well. Jesus Christ! Poirot goes to talk to Jacqueline, who says that murder is easy, and there was no one eavesdropping that night at the hotel. As the passengers disembark, Cornelia says she's going to marry Dr. Bessner, which upsets Ferguson. And as Simon is taken off the boat, Jacqueline comforts him, kisses him, then holy shit kills them both using a duplicate gun that she hid in Rosalie's handbag. We end the episode with memories of happier times. Holy shit, Death on the Nile is so freaking good. It's my favourite Poirot mystery, and I remember the first time I saw it, it gave me chills. Yes, it's a little bit long and perhaps a bit overstuffed with characters. Andrew especially seems unnecessary, but it's so good. I've seen several versions of the story and read the book, but this one is the definitive version for me. I mean, the Peter Ustinov one had Queen Angela Lansbury as Salome Otterbourne, but the cast as a whole in the Suchet version worked really well. Ferguson was a bit of a random oddball, but I really liked him, and I felt sorry for Cornelia, but she was portrayed pretty realistically. Death on the Nile is very similar to Evil Under the Sun, which I covered previously, where lovers work together to kill a love rival in an elaborate way for her money, in a way that gave them both alibis. Death on the Nile came first, so it may have inspired the other, but it definitely seemed to inspire the Diagnosis Murder episode Reign of Terror, where someone is supposedly shot in the leg, they run off to commit a murder, and come back to shoot themselves for real as an alibi. There's a lot going on in Death on the Nile. Aside from the murder of Linnet, there's Salome's alcoholism plotline, Ferguson's secret identity, Tim's jewel theft tendencies, and whatever is going on with Andrew. But amongst all that clutter, the clues are laid out for you really well, and knowing who and how, I was able to spot them all. What gets me about this story is just how cold-blooded it all is. Simon marries a woman he doesn't love for the sole purpose of murdering her for her money, and when they end up with two witnesses, Jacqueline kills them without hesitation, all while manipulating everyone into believing their innocence. And on top of all that, when they're caught, Jacqueline kills Simon and herself, which shocked the hell out of me when I was younger, and the last shot of them dead together is pretty freaking eerie. We have three victims: Linnet Doyle, shot in the head by her husband Simon, witness to that crime, Louise Bourget, who was stabbed by Jacqueline, and witness to that crime, Salome Otterbourne, who was shot dead by Jacqueline in order to silence her. Then our two killers decided to die together rather than face the gallows. So there you have it. That was Death on the Nile. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, or come say hi on social media. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit that like button, it really does mean a lot, or consider subscribing if you want more videos like this one. Alternatively, feel free to check out my other YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching, I'll speak to you soon, and keep an eye out for clues.